we are looking at Numbers chapter 27. An interesting story, as we had already stated. This is coming right off of the 26, where we dealt with all the names and the numberings and so forth. And if you remember in there, when we were numbering and reading through the numbers of the people, there was one group of folks that was mentioned, and it gave a little footnote, and it said, this individual had no sons, only daughters. I don't know if you remember that. Okay? And so we're going to elaborate a little bit upon that whole concept, because what we're going to see here is, what I like to see is this chapter speaks to everything in life. Now you say, well, Wayne, this is just a simple chapter. It don't speak to everything like that. But I'm going to say to you it does. Because one of the things that this chapter will point out is problems and how to solve them. One of the things, good morning, Calvin. One of the things about problems is that problems need a what? A solution. Exactly. And one of the things I think is interesting, and I want to just kind of say this before we get into the reading, so that you'll have it in your mind while we go through the reading, is that God has allowed us in our progressing forward after Eve has already eaten of the fruit. God has put in the nature of us something that forces us to be more and more like Him. All right? We lost Wayne. Hopefully he comes back. Forces us to be more and more like Him. And that is that we have to handle and deal with problems. And if we don't handle and deal with problems, the problems can overtake us. You look at a newborn baby. That newborn baby is born with all kinds of problems. Problem number one, it can't protect itself. Problem number two, it can't feed itself. So, what does it need? It needs somebody else that will recognize its problem and address it and deal with it. And so, therefore, in our nature, while we're living on this sinful earth, we have a nature that forces us to deal with issues and problems and difficulties. So, what I like to point out in this chapter is a couple of problems that we're going to see. And I also want us to think about, how do we handle problems? We're going to see two different kind of problems that they're very unique and different from each other, but they are issues that need a solution. And so each of the solutions are going to come from an individual that feels, well, I think, an answer to this problem. So what I then pull from this chapter that we're going to hear in just a minute is, what kind of problems do you seem to be able to solve? When problems in life come up, what do you say? Oh, you know what? I think I know how to solve that. I know how to deal with those problems. Sometimes we look for problem solving as just something that we enjoy doing. Haywood likes to do puzzles. That means you take this picture, chop it up in a billion pieces, and you figure out how to put it back together. Well, you got a problem. It's to find out which piece connects to the other. Some people are good at that. Some people will set that puzzle on fire because they're not good at doing puzzles. All right? So you got to know what problem you are pretty adept to solving. And God will bless us in that. To the point to where I think that if you are not solving problems, you are not a happy person. Problems come to us so that the individual or the person that has the solution can operate in his gift or in his wisdom or in his understanding, his or her. And I think that's part of life that God has allowed us to have while we are still moving towards our new heaven and our new earth. We're still here in this sinful environment, but then we act and operate like God in the sense God solved the problem. He solved the problem with sin, but then he tells us, you are my children. You're going to have attributes like me. You're going to be problem solvers too. So problems come in what kind of flavors? Sometimes you see a situation that's broken and you need to be able to fix it. Sometimes the situation is not broken, it's just underdeveloped and you have to develop it. Sometimes a situation is not broke, it's just old and it has to be what? Repurposed or renewed or recycled. All of these things come along. Sometimes there are situations where things need to be directed. Some problems need to be made anew. Yeah. So look at Haywood. You go into a room, it's got paint on the wall. It's not that it hasn't been painted, but what does it need? It needs some new paint. All right, and all of these are problem solvers. And so we're gonna kind of try to pull that spirit from this lesson. Two simple problems. We're only looking at two, but we're going to see how the Lord chooses to deal with it. So let's take a quick listen. Numbers chapter 27.
Chapter 27. Then came the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. And these are the names of his daughters: Bala, Noah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses, and before Eleazar the priest, and before the princes and all the congregation, by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying,
Our father died in the wilderness, and he was not in the company of them that gathered themselves together against the Lord and the company of Korah, but died in his own sin, and had no sons. Why should the name of our father be done away from among his family? Because he had no son. Give unto us, therefore, a possession among the brethren of our father.
And Moses brought their cause before the Lord. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, The daughters of Zelophehad speak right. Thou shalt surely give them a possession of an inheritance among their father's brethren. And thou shalt cause the inheritance of their father to pass unto them. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a man die and have no son, then ye shall cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughter. And if he have no daughter, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his brethren. And if he have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his father's brethren. And if his father have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his kinsman, that is next to him of his family, and he shall possess it. And it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment, as the Lord commanded Moses. And the Lord said unto Moses, Get thee up into this Mount Abarim, and see the land which I have given unto the children of Israel. And when thou hast seen it, thou also shalt be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother was gathered. For ye rebelled against my commandment in the desert of Zin, in the strife of the congregation, to sanctify me at the water before their eyes, that is, the water of Meribah at Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin. And Moses spake unto the Lord, saying,
Let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation, which may go out before them, which may go in before them, which may lead them out, which may bring them in, that the congregation of the Lord be not as sheep which have no shepherd.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Take thee Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay thine hand upon him, and set him before Eleazar the priest, and before all the congregation, and give him a charge in their sight. And thou shalt put some of thine honor upon him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient. And he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall ask counsel for him after the judgment of Urim before the Lord. At his word shall they go out, and at his word they shall come in, both he and all the children of Israel with him, even all the congregation. And Moses did as the Lord commanded him, and he took Joshua and set him before Eleazar the priest, and before all the congregation. And he laid his hands upon him and gave him a charge, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses.
All right. So there we go. Very interesting chapter. We have two very important stories in here. And the reason why I say they're important, these are not things that a lot of times people go to and say, oh, wow, this is a very powerful situation. But it brings out to me the everydayness of how we are as individuals. Um, it's important to know how to walk in the Lord. And to walk in the Lord is taking each step every day. How do you count a day? We count a day by how many what? How many hours? All right, but then what's an hour? We count hours by how many what? Minutes.
Minutes.
And then, okay, well then what's a minute? We count minutes by how many seconds? All right, and then we can go into, milliseconds and, and break it down even further. But the key I'm trying to get to is that little things are what big things are made out of. Days are made out of seconds. Months are made out of days. Years are made out of months. And decades are made out of centuries, and centuries are made out of decades, and so forth and so on. So the point I'm bringing out is that let's focus on what things are made out of. Your life, my life, has been made out of decisions. Small decisions, big decisions, consistent decisions, erratic decisions. All those little decisions have added up to you and your experience.
It defines who you are.
It tells you who you are. The interactions that you had and what you decided to do with those interactions or decided what not to do has produced who you are and brought you to where you are. Now, wherever you are, guess who's there with you? God. Miss Penny's raising her hand. She goes, I want to answer that.
I got too excited.
God is with you. When you make a decision to go left when God wanted you to go right, guess who went left with you? God. He's like, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. All right? Now, he's like, I'm not empowering you. I'm not, because he didn't empower Peter to deny him 3 times. But he told Peter, you will deny me, and all I'm worried about is that your faith fail not. And what is his faith in? His faith was in God. So that means that him and God never separate, even though he goes left when God is saying, I'm praying that you go right. But I'm going to allow you to make your what? Decision. You're going to make your decision. Shows you the beauty of God, the love of God.
Yes.
God is saying, I'm here with you. While you're going through all this muck in the mire and all this kind of stuff, I'm not empowering you. I'm not going to give you any strength. I'm not going to give you any joy in this mess. But I will be here with you.
To catch you when you
I'm
come
helping
to your
you
senses.
to keep you from, and the moment you come to your senses and say, I'm going to go to my Father's house, then I will start empowering you. Other than that, you're going through all this stuff on your own strength. But when you start making a right decision, then you'll watch and see the power of God become anointed in your life. Now, let's look at our story. So chapter 27 of Numbers, it starts off, it says, then. Now, that word then is similar to that word and that we sometimes see in the scripture. And you should go back and find out, well, what's going on here? Well, we've already kind of talked about that in our preliminaries. This is coming right off the heels of the numbering and the gathering together and the grouping of the people of Israel just before they get ready to go into the promised land, into the Canaan land. So it says, then came the daughters of Zelophehad, which I'm probably not pronouncing correctly. But what's interesting about this, if you look through the names of all of these, you come down to the tribe of Manasseh, and we know that the tribe of Manasseh is a grafted in a grandson tribe from the tribe of Joseph. So this is what we're looking at, Manasseh/Joseph here, okay? All right, and so it says, and it says that let me see where we're at. It says of our family, and their names of the daughters, and it gives their names. And in verse 2 it says, they stood before Moses and before Eliezer. And I just want to slide in here, verse 2. Keep in mind how we're seeing this now. Stood before Moses and Eliezer. Who's missing? Aaron. Right? Remember, Aaron has died. All right, so what we're seeing is the dying off. All right, we want to talk about that in a minute too. Stood before Moses and before Eliezer the priest, and before the princes and all the congregation, by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying. So now these daughters have something to say. What do they got to say? Well, they recognize a what? A problem, and they feel a decision needs to be made to address this problem. Look what they outline. Look at verse 3. Our father died. All right, problem number 1. In the wilderness. Well, they said the people were going to die in the wilderness. But look what they're going. And he was not in the company of them that gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah. All right? So, once again, you do need to know what this is talking about. This is talking about Korah, remember when he rebelled, right? And it says, but died in his own sin and had no sins. All right? So now that's the thing to keep in mind. The wages of sin is what? Death. So that's always going to happen. But he had a problem. Number 1, he died like everybody is going to do. But the problem he had was that he didn't have any sons. All right, so now that brings forth another issue, because customarily now, all the inheritance that we talked about in chapter 26 is supposed to go through the who? The sons. And so now these daughters are saying, I see these inheritance, but we are going to miss out because our father had no sons. And so now, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? How are we going to get our possessions that our father worked for and was blessed to give and to have, and now it's going to bypass us based on how things traditionally are done. Okay? So, look at what he says. Look at verse 4. Why should the name of our father be done away from among his family because he have no sons? So should his name die out just because he was unfortunate in the situation of his offspring, that he had no sons? He had children, but he didn't have any sons. And so they then come up with a solution. A person that can find an answer to a problem is valuable. When you have an issue, or somebody else has an issue, and you look at it, and sometimes you ever have a problem and you look at it and somebody comes along and they fix it, and you say thank you to them, and you tell them, I would have never figured that out because it's not your area of doing stuff. And sometimes vice versa. You see somebody that's doing something and you be like, what are you doing here? And then you go, let me show you how to do this. And you go in and you flip this, turn that, do that, whatever it is that you do. And they go, oh my goodness, how did you know how to do that? Well, because that's a problem that you find very convenient for applying answers that you have learned in life. All right? And so look at what these daughters says. Give unto us, therefore, a possession. Now, that hasn't happened before. We don't give possessions, inheritance to the daughters. We give them to the sons. Okay? Now, we're going to see it. So they're saying, since we don't have no sons, I'm a human being, even though back in those days, daughters were sold and given and traded like possessions were. But they say, I'm a human being and I should have the ability to have those inheritances because they belong to my father. Okay? So it says, give unto us, therefore, the possession among the brethren of our father. Give it to his daughters. Now, look at verse 5. And Moses brought their cause before the Lord. Now, once again, here's another very good what? Decision. Moses is looking at this and says, I see the problem. Because from a historical and traditional standpoint, women don't get the title deed to the land. That ain't something you're supposed to have. And I don't know if I should break this tradition, but what I do know is I'm going to go to God and see if God says this is something we need to look at differently than how we have traditionally looked at it. Now, here's another thing about problem solving. Sometimes you can't get past a problem because you are stuck in what? Tradition. I'm just stuck in how we used to do it. I do it this way. My father did it that way. My father before him. And when you trying to always do things the way it was always done, new ideas and solutions to problems will avoid you. You will not see the ability to fix a problem because you're stuck in the past on how you want to see and do things. Moses recognized, hey, this is a real problem because the way we do things in the past, these women are not supposed to get anything. But what I will do, I'll give it to God and see what God says. Now, look at verse 6. And the Lord spake unto Moses. Moses went to God. God spoke back to Moses, saying, the daughters of Zelophehad speak right. So their solution was correct. That means you got to buck the tradition, move away from what you used to do, change for what you've already had established, and do something what? New. Do something different. That's a lot of times how problems can get solved. You can't get locked in a box of thinking. The daughters were thinking, hey, I know this isn't how things used to work, but let's try it. I think this will solve the problem. And God says they were correct. Now, I will say this. You know who was the individuals to go a different way, to do something non-traditional? It was the ladies. It was the women. My wife showed me something the other day about women, about a wife particularly. And it says, when you have a wife, and if you get married and you give her of your genetic sperm, she will multiply it and give you a child. If you give your wife a house, she will multiply it and give you a home. If you give your wife groceries, she will take it and multiply it and give you a meal. If you give your wife frustration, she will multiply it and give you hell.
That was not my intent.
So I find it very interesting when it comes to women. I always like to talk about Mary Magdalene and the women after the 3 days when Jesus was supposed to rise. And they rose up. Remember, they wanted to put spices on the body, right? And they rose up and they're like, we're going to go do this. And we're going to put spices, because they had an objective that they're trying to get done. So they went out, just the women, by themselves. Before the sun even came out, they're on their way to the tomb. But while they were walking, they said to themselves, wait a minute. Who's going to roll away the stone? This stone, you need several strong men to roll that stone away. And then you think about it, if you ask that question, and the Bible doesn't mention this, but it makes you think, well, how are they going to get past the guards? So, how are they going to get in there? I'm going to put the spices on the bottom. But they went anyway. And when they got there, guess what? God had already solved the problem. So, and when I look at this, I'm not going to just bypass the fact that this new way of thinking was presented to Moses by these women. And I think that's something that we should always keep in mind, that yes, sometimes you need a different voice, and sometimes you need a voice coming from a different point of view. Sometimes not always the point of view of men, but you indeed need the point of view of women. Very, very important. So look at what God does, and God's going to elaborate those. God's going to show you. Let me show you how right they are. Let me show you really how deep this goes. Look at what God says. It says the daughters speak right, and it says, "Thou shalt surely give them a possession of an inheritance among their fathers." So it says they speak right, and you should surely, that means definitely, give them their inheritance among their fathers and brethren. And thou shalt cause the inheritance of the father to pass unto them. Make sure they get it. But God's not finished. Look what he's gonna open that up a little bit more. Look what he says. "And thou shalt speak unto the congregation of Israel, saying, If a man die and have no sons, then ye shall cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughters." Now, we need to stop here and pause, because there's a lot in that statement that God just made. Look what he said here. He says, I'm not trying to tell you not to give the inheritance to the son. But what I'm trying to tell you, that if there is a problem where there is no son, then I need you to give the inheritance to the daughter. I need you to understand that if there happens to be a lack of a man, don't stop the program because a man won't step up. Give it to the woman that will step up. And that's an important concept. And God's theme and his theology and teachings about this world that we're living in, this world that we are still on this old earth filled with all these old problems, and we got old sin still involved here. God has chosen to allow the man to be the vessel to lead in the spiritual connection to God, and to feed the family spiritually, protect the family, to provide for the family. But this statement right here tells us, if there is no man, no son, what do? Allow the woman to step up. So I would say to all the godly women, that if there is a void and a man's not stepping in, it is your responsibility to go ahead and do it. The man won't pay the bills? Well, you can pay him, then you pay him. Don't go down because a man wants to act like a clown. Right? You step up and be a woman of God, and let God use you with the gifts and problem solutions, just like these daughters had. They had a problem. I said, we're not going down because there ain't no man over here. We're going to find and present the problem, but I'm not only going to present the problem, I'm also going to present the what? The solution. And then you take it to God. You don't believe me? You pray about it. See what God tells you. And watch how God will bring forth an understanding to what needs to be done. But God goes on and says, so if there is no son, then you will pass it on to the daughter. But he goes even further than that. Look at verse 9. And if there be no daughter, then ye shall give the inheritance to his brethren. So you go find the brethren of the father, and you give it to him. Okay? So, and then it says in verse 10, and if there be no brethren, then you shall give his inheritance to his father's brothers. So you give him up to his uncles. Okay? And if his fathers have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his kinsmen. So you go find somebody, some family member, and you give it to him. Okay? And so what God is saying is, don't let the gifts that I've blessed you with be thrown away. Find someone that can use them. Now, what does that mean? All of these, you don't have no son. Okay, that's a problem. Wait a minute, but you ain't got no daughter either. Okay, that's another problem. Well, we got an answer for that. Oh, give it to the brethren. He ain't got no brothers. Another problem. Oh, give it to the uncles. No uncles. Sometimes you try to solve one problem and you recognize, oh, another problem just showed up. You solve that problem, another problem and you got to keep going. What God is saying is, keep going. Don't stop.
Find someone in that family.
Go find somebody, exactly.
Oh.
And it speaks to this issue specifically, but it also speaks generally to problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
We can get weary in well doing.
Mm-hmm.
You can be doing well, and then every time I turn around, I fix this, and there's always another problem. That's okay. God will be with you. Keep going. Keep on. Keep finding another family member to that problem. Keep finding another answer. And you know what family member you will always find to your problem? Jesus.
Amen.
He's the family member that you well, I can't find no uncles and nephews and nieces or no. I can find Jesus. All right? And he is that's where the buck stops. He then say, well, I'm gonna show you how to handle it, how to deal with it, or go through it. Okay? Sometimes problems are solved through endurance. That means, you just I gotta wait it out. I gotta go through it. I gotta experience it. And what does that mean? So how did you solve that problem? By staying steadfast in the midst of it. Well, that didn't stop the problem from coming. No, but it allowed the problem to what? Come, and then also to what? Pass. See, what you want to do, I want to get out the problem. Well, to get out the problem, you're going to have to allow it to come sometimes, and you're going to be in the midst of it, but then it's going to go and it's going to pass. And, well, how did you get out of it? I let it run its course, and I got out of it. So there's so many unique ways of solving problems that God is letting us know. Don't get weary, because we can get weary. The scripture said don't get weary in what? In well doing.
Well done.
All right. So what you're doing well, you're trusting and holding on to God. But every time you do it, it's like, man, I'm getting hit with that one, getting hit with this one. Penny has something to say. Go ahead.
Well, it's like when the storm comes. Sometimes we just got to stand still in the storm and let the storm just whirl its way around, but stand still, holding on to God's unchanging hands.
That's right. You just let the storm pass. Yeah. So that's an important thing. And then towards the end of the 11th verse, it says, "And it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment, as the Lord commanded Moses." So these women brought something that God says, I'm going to create a new statute. Here's something that you're going to do. I want everybody to see this, because he did this before the whole congregation, and understand that God says, this is how you can handle it. And God said that you're going to do it the way, you're going to do it the way that these daughters presented it. All right? And that's how it's going to be done. So, allow the Lord to work with you through your problems, and you'll be surprised how sometimes you'll be like, oh, that's how you solve that. That's how you deal with that. Other people may pick it up, and you'll be thought of as being, wow, I'm so glad they, figured out how to do this, because now we're going to do it that way too. And that's an important thing in life. All right, let's keep going, because we got another problem to look at. Verse 12. "And the Lord said unto Moses, Get thee up unto this mountain Aram, and see the land which I have given unto the children of Israel." So he tells them, I want you to go up onto the mountain, and you're going to be high enough into the mountain that you're going to be able to look over the valley and see the land from a distance that I'm going to give to the children of Israel. All right, that's a nice thing to do. I'm going to go take a look at the land. Let's go to verse 13. "And when thou hast seen it, thou also shalt be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother was gathered." Oh, okay. I'm going to go be gathered. Ain't that nice? Make sure you understand what the word of God is saying unto you. What is God telling Moses? You're about to what?
Die.
You're about to die. Your days have come to an end. Okay? Now, Do you see a problem? Once again, in dealing with life and death, it's always lined with problems. What do I do? How do I handle this? Now, look at what God says unto Moses. You're going to be gathered to your brother, verse 14. And he's giving him the reason why. And he's already told him this, but he's just rehashing this. Verse 14. For ye rebelled against my commandment in the desert of Zin, in the strife of the congregation, to sanctify me at the waters before their eyes, that it was water of Meribah at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. So remember when God told Moses to go out and speak to the rock? And what did Moses do? He went out and smacked it with his staff, right? And God says that you didn't keep the commandment, which was a type or a shadow. Because Jesus, when they first came to a point where they had no water, Moses was told to strike the rock. But the second time, he was not supposed to strike it. He was supposed to what? Speak to it. That is a type of Jesus. When Jesus came the first time, he was smitten, he was beat, he was whipped, he was put on a cross. But when it comes the second time, he's not going to be smitten twice. And so Moses broke the pattern, and God says, nobody breaks my pattern. Because why? Because I'm holy. And so therefore he had to pay the penalty for not keeping the picture pure. All right, so he didn't keep the picture that God was painting through all his symbolism and analysis and all of his metaphorical aspects in what the people are doing that represents Jesus. Remember, Jesus says, all of the word of God does what? Speak of me. And so therefore, if it doesn't speak of him, it's because somebody does something, and God told Moses, you broke my pattern. Okay? Verse 15. So, you see the problem. Look at verse 15. Moses is now going to address the problem. He has a solution to this problem too. Look what he says. And Moses spake unto the Lord, saying, let the Lord, the God of the spirit of all flesh, set a man over the congregation. So, what's the problem that Moses sees? Moses seeing, I'm going to leave. But I know how these folks are. If they don't have somebody that they can see. Why? Because Moses knows these folks do not walk by faith. They walk by sight. They need to see somebody. They need a visible leader. They're not going to just trust that God's going to be there when they can't see him, and he's going to be there because he said he will be there. They're not going to do that. They need to see a real leader. They need somebody in front of them. And so Moses is telling God, look, God, if you're going to take me away, put somebody else there. Because these folks will go astray. Now, the bottom line is Moses knows these folks very well. They're going to go astray what? Anyway. But at least this way, they'll have a leader at the very beginning, and it will take them longer to be able to get out of line because they'll have somebody that can whip them back in line. And Moses sees us. So look what he says. He says, set a man over the congregation. Verse 17. Which may go out before them and which may go in before them. Somebody that can show them the way. And which may lead them out and which may bring them in. Somebody that will walk and show them how to walk, where to go, how to go, when to go. All right? And the congregation of the Lord be not as sheep which have no shepherd. Because if they don't have something that they can physically see, these people walk by their natural eyes, they walk by their natural appetites, they follow their natural belly. They are not spiritual. And Moses knows the problem. He recognizes it very well and says, will you please give a man that is spiritual to help guide them that they can visibly see and walk and follow. Okay, look at verse 18. And the Lord said unto Moses, take thee Joshua, the son of Nun. So Moses was looking for God to put somebody in his place, and God said, Moses, I already have somebody there. I know these people just like I know these people better than you do. I know they need somebody. And so the person that's going to replace you as the leader, the person for the people to follow, will be Joshua, the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit. And so then he says, and lay thy hand upon him, and he will fall out under the benches and kick and scream. Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. That's what people think is always going to happen when they what? Lay their hands on you. They expect you to fall out backwards, hit the ground, but that's not what we see here. Look what he said. He said, and lay thy hand upon him, and set him before Eleazar the priest. So now we got two new leaders here. We got Joshua and we got Eleazar. Previously we had Moses and we had Aaron. Now, let me just say that as we continue in the book of Numbers, we're still going to see Numbers, and even see Moses. And even when we get to the book of Deuteronomy, we're going to see Moses, because Moses is going to give a rehashing. He's going to tell the story of the children of Israel in Deuteronomy. So Moses is not leaving the scene quite yet, but we know he is leaving, and when he does leave, Joshua will step into his place. All right. So 19. It says, set him before Eleazar the priest, and go, it says, and before all the congregation, and give him a charge in their sight. So God told Moses, I want you to get Joshua, bring him to Eleazar, and in front of all the congregation. I want you to do this in their sight. Why? Because these people walk by sight. They need to what? See it.
See.
What does the scripture advise us to do? To walk by sight? No. We should walk by what? By faith. The scripture tells us walk by faith, not by sight. But you see here, God is letting Moses know, yes, I know these people need to be able to see this. So do this in front of their sight so they can see it. All right? And he goes on. And thou shalt put some of thy honor upon him. I like, I don't know so much I like, I think it's interesting that it says, thou shalt put some of thy honor. And you say, well, what does that mean? I have to be honest with you. I'm still trying to figure out what the sum means, you know. So it's kind of like he ain't going to be Moses, but he's going to be in place of Moses. Put some of thy honor. So I think it's just interesting. I'll just point that out so you can look at it. And you can think about it and ask God to give you some insights. All right? Because I think about it, I'm like, oh, I'm sure it means something. And then I chew on it for, a day or a week or sometimes a month just thinking about it. And it's usually what happens, something pops up in my spirit. I'm like, oh, I wonder if God was kind of referring to this or that. Yes, Wayne?
Yeah, I look at it as though as he leads them on, then God restores more honor to him.
That could be too. Yep. So I'm going to give you some of it. And as you continue, I'll give you a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit. Yeah, that's another very good way of looking at it. Very good.
Well, I feel that and it says, and thou shalt put some of thy honor upon him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient. So to pass on from Moses, to pass on that respect, so that the children can continue in like manner follow him. Okay. And then with what Wayne said, as Eleazar, Joshua goes on, he will build it on, build him up for the continue of his honor. Not all say if, for instance, somebody spouse pass on, and then you remarry. There's no way that that person that you remarry can be the person that you had before.
Right.
But you were giving him the honor of being your husband now. The one that
Right.
you follow.
That's true. Now that makes a lot of sense between what Wayne said and what Ms. Penny said, because you don't want the people just to say, "Well, I'm going to follow you because you Moses' replacement." I need to follow you because God is working in you.
He's working in you, right?
He's working in you like He worked in Moses, and so
Right.
I'm following
That's
you.
what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm following you because God has bestowed you some honor
Yes.
to lead us.
Right. So
Now, as you lead us, God's gonna bestow more honor on you, more problem solving on you. That brought you to this problem.
right.
Why are you put in this position now? Because you're gonna have to bring our problems to you, because that's the way we are, because we see you, and you have to bring all our problems to God, which will create more problems for you. Then it's like one big circle.
Yep. That's good.
And you don't want to forget all that Moses has
Right.
done, so you don't wash him out,
Right.
so he won't get
No.
all of Moses' honor.
Right. So you don't get all of Moses' honor. You just get the fact that, okay, Moses brought you to here and you were working with Moses. But now you got to build your own
Right.
reputation.
Right, right.
You got to you got to show people. You got to show people that you can follow God.
Well, he has some of Moses' honor because the people has to respect him.
God gave him some of the honor. Not Moses.
Yeah.
Moses didn't give him honor. God gave him
God
some.
gave.
God bestowed some honor on Moses. Didn't bestow nothing on him. No, because like you said, God already knew all this was coming.
Yeah. Go ahead,
You
Hayden.
know?
Yeah, it's like like we look at sports, and we can kind of look at something natural that we can see every day. Like everybody says, oh, that guy is gonna be like Michael Jordan, but there'll never be another Michael Jordan.
Right.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So God allows you to have the ability to do some of the things that Michael Jordan did, but you could never be another
Yeah,
Michael
right.
Jordan.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
it.
Yep. That's it.
God
Very good.
had put that spirit on him at that time to do this particular job a certain way. You will come and do it, but you will never be able to do it the way he did it.
Exactly.
But as time goes by, you will get closer to be good, like that, but not exactly like that
Right.
person.
And it's probably not that you ever will be exactly like the other.
Right.
You have to build it as God see it in you,
Right.
which comes with some differentness,
Right.
which we started out this chapter with. We don't keep just because the tradition is this way. We don't keep it that way if God doesn't say that or gives us other solutions.
Right. And that's a good point.
Right. God's not gonna let you be like someone else.
That's right.
God's gonna make you be you.
Yeah. And that
God's not gonna like he was saying, for instance, like how everybody was coming into the league and he's the next Michael Jordan, and next thing you know, 2 years later he's out of the league or he's hurt.
right.
So God's not gonna put that on you. Like I said, God's gonna restore some honor to you, and then God's gonna have you follow the way I want you to go. If you don't go that way, so you're not gonna get some more honor. When you start doing the things that I want you to do, I don't want you to do the things that Moses did, because Moses didn't listen to everything I said. So I don't want you to be like Moses, because if you be like Moses, you see what Moses is now. That's why you're here, because Moses didn't do what I said.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to be like Moses.
Yeah.
Don't even think about being like nobody else, but be Joshua, and let me show you how I want you to lead my people.
That's right. And the thing about Joshua's going to have problems that Moses didn't encounter. He's going to have some similar some similar problems, but God will be like, Joshua, I need you to solve problems that Moses never faced. That means you can't think of, I wonder how Moses would do it. No.
Hey,
You got to think of how is Joshua going to do it, empowered by God. How am I going to let God lead me through all this? And so that's an important thing. So there's a lot in that. I'm glad I kind of brought that out, and we kind of hashed that around. I bet you there's some deeper aspects to this as well, but we're going to keep chewing on that. I think that was a good little appetizer
Yeah.
to chew on.
We keep going forward to see what Jack.
All right. Let's look at verse 21. It says, and he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, whom shall ask counsel of him after the judgments of Uriah before the Lord. At the word shall they go out, and at his word shall they come in. So what he's saying is that I'm going to anoint you, and you're going to be anointed by Eleazar the priest, so that at your word people will go in, and at your word people will go out. Both he and all the children of Israel with him, even all the congregation. So the congregation is going to follow you, Joshua. Why? Because they follow what they can see. They're not spiritual enough yet to walk by faith. They're not calling me father. They're not calling me king. They're not calling me leader. They're still calling me God. And a lot of people see God as God, but they don't see him as father. They don't see him as Lord. They don't see him as king. They just see him as God, somebody that can do great things. And so when you come down to trusting and doing and making decisions, they need to be able to see things. And so Joshua, that's what you're there. You're their sight. And you will have faith in me. You will see me as Lord. You will see me as your God. All right? Verse 22. And Moses did as the Lord commanded him. And he took Joshua and set him before Eleazar the priest and before the congregation. And he laid hands upon him, and he gave him a charge, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. All right? So, Moses went and did it exactly the way God said do it. And then the suggestion that Moses offered to God, God was like, very good suggestion, Moses. By the way, I already had that provided. The guy that's going to be the sight and the person, so these folks won't be sheep without a shepherd, will be Joshua. Now, that does speak to us, because even though in our Christian walk as New Testament believers, we are told to walk by faith and not by sight. But we still, in our faith, put all of our faith in what? Jesus. We still have to look to our Joshua and let our Joshua speak to us. Now, the scripture tells us we can go to God how? Boldly. But we also have an advocate. We have a relationship. We have a wonderful connection with God, so that we can also have Jesus. And then in us have the Spirit. Wow. We got 3 ways of entering into a relationship and a revelation with God. By the Father, by the Son, and by the Holy Spirit. Isn't that beautiful? So we are not sheep led without a shepherd.
But sometimes we forget to do that.
That's true.
You know?
Yep.
Sometimes we stop and think, oh, wait. And then we have to step back and say, that ain't the way to do it. But a lot of times, well, let me speak for myself. A lot of times, that issue come to me. You know, it's like, I can do this. And I say, you know what? That's what got you in this situation. Because you thought you could do it. You know? Yep. And then that's why sometimes I just have to step back and, like I said, just be still. You know? And just hear that voice saying, I got you.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
That's true. That's true. And that's an important thing. And we need that in our everyday activity, because every day we make little decisions that build our life. All right? And so this chapter is letting us know that decisions are going to be made, inheritances, items passed on, People are going to live, leave, die, move on, be replaced, build new relationships, and all of this activity, you got to make a decision on how you're going to interact within what has been presented and what is brought up in a new day. Sometimes different days bring different problems. Sometimes new day, same old problem. But at the same time, you got to figure out how I'm going to apply it. And if you have an idea, share your idea with God, like these daughters did, like Moses did, and see if God is saying, I've been waiting for you to say that, because here's what you're going to do. And so therefore, speak your heart and your mind. Tell God what's in your spirit. You say, wait. You don't know what my spirit, I got stuff that's ridiculous. This could never happen. Oh, so when did God become weak? If it's in you, say it. Now, if God will say, yeah, okay, that's nice, but that ain't happening for you. That's okay. But still say it. Why? That's what Paul did. God, I need these problems to be removed. I need the situation and this is what I think should happen. And God told Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. I'm not going to answer or do what you've asked me to do, but I will still be with you while you struggle in that which you wish you didn't have to struggle. I will still be with you.
Once again, that's why I'm glad that Hayward said, Wayne, it's only an hour. Because I learned so many things that I didn't know that I could even say to God. I didn't know how to say, God, I'm upset. I didn't know how to say, God, I don't like this. You're too slow. Where you at? Are you here? Today I feel good. Tomorrow I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So, you just with me today and left tomorrow. But these are the things that I'm feeling. Now I know that, God knew I was feeling this way. He just wanted to say, Wayne, you can talk to me any way you want.
Exactly.
Just don't curse me.
Well,
you can talk to me any way you want, Wayne. Anyway, you can be mad, you can be happy, you can be foolish, but just don't curse me. Because I'm here with you.
Yeah. He's there.
Once you curse me, you're telling me you don't need me.
Yeah. He's there, and like you said, you can feel all your emotions. Every one of your emotions can come up, and you just share it with him, and give him your, well, Lord, what about this and what about that? And that's what these individuals, the daughters under these situation of not having any brothers. Hey, I want my inheritance, and God says you're going to get it.
It's just like you ever hear a person say you shouldn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, that's my feeling.
Yep.
Just because it's not yours, you can't tell me I can't feel this way.
It's true. That's a very true statement. I've always, not always, I've learned to put validation on what people feel. Now, if I think their feelings are inadequate, that's how I see it. But that doesn't change how they feel.
Right.
And so it's like when you give somebody, like if you give me some salmon, you'll be like, everybody, you eat this, you're gonna feel good. No, if you give me salmon, I'm gonna feel like I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So don't tell me how to react to what you've given me. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm sick now because I ate this salmon. Everybody's reaction to a variety of stimulus can be different. Now, there's a way that the majority will feel. That's it. There's a way that the majority should feel, but that don't mean everybody's going to feel that way.
Like I hear people say, oh, man, I love to walk in your shoes. And I used to tell a buddy of mine, they say, oh, man, Charles, I love to walk in your shoes. He used to tell Charles, you keep those 12s. If they only knew everything that when he wakes up in the morning till he goes to bed at night, how much is on his plate every day, You don't want to walk in that man's shoes.
That's true.
What you wanted was what was in that man's pocket.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
But he didn't go by it illegally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what they thought. The man got up in the morning, he worked 3 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and that's one of those things that you sometimes don't understand what people do to get to where they are. But we do know
Right.
this: you are there. Like we start, we're going to close with what we finished with. Just like how days and weeks and months and years are made up of seconds, your life is made up by little decisions that you've made all along the way. And if you want to keep getting what you're getting, keep making the same decisions. If you want to change, you might have to change and come out of the box, think a little different, get a little bit of a unique philosophy, and make some other decisions. Because that's what's going to push and move your life forward. All right, we're going to stop there. Any other comments or questions?